It's a really cool colour actually. I'm not a big fan of yellow, but I think it looks quite nice. It's just a good looking colour. The green engine bay sort of kills it a little bit, but you know, it's a replica. All right, so we are back working on the replica MFP Interceptor. And we should hopefully now have every single piece we need, or at least mostly, because I did make a bit of a stuff up, to get this thing on the road and start driving. Now, the bit of the stuff up that I made is I bought one caliper rebuild kit. I didn't buy two. Now, one caliper is seized, the other one's operating just fine, but I've got new discs, new brake pads, new brake lines. I've got everything to replace there. I might as well rebuild the caliper while I'm at it too. So we've got a new one on its way as well. Whilst it's all on the hoist too, we're going to replace the transmission sump that is leaking, or rather just the sump gasket, not the whole sump itself. When it's a part two, I might see if I can find another filter sock for it. I'm not too sure what the filters look like in the FMX transmission, so I'm going to pull it out and have a look, and then we'll see how obtainable it is to get another filter and how dirty it looks. And then speaking of taking care of things, we want to make sure we take care of this rear diff. It's a Borg-Warner diff, not a 9-inch, and this is a 351 Cleveland, and I think it's had a little bit of work done to it. It at least has direct gear drive, so there's torque from this bigger motor than what that Borg-Warner diff is used to handling. So we're going to make sure we take care of it, and we're going to do that by pulling off the rear pumpkin housing, the rear plate, drain all the fluid out and put on a new gasket because that gasket is leaking. So we're going to get that sorted. And then the only other thing is we're going to replace the trans mount because that's pretty flogged. So we'll get a new one up in there as well. And then we can take it for a spin after we bleed the blade. Bleed the blade? Bleed the blade. After we we're going to breed the brakes. After we bleed the brakes as well.
Yes, we are working on this replica MFP Interceptor, which started out life as a one-owner bog stock XB Falcon 6-cylinder. With no rust and only having 150,000 kilometers on the clock, it is in excellent condition for a vehicle that is twice my age, with the only dramas we've found are wear items needing to be replaced.
Don't look too bad. As you may have seen when I removed the caliper, these brakes aren't really in need of replacement, but since we're rebuilding the calipers, I figured might as well give it a birthday. It's been sitting for a long time too, so this grease is old and I'm sure it's got rust and corrosion all in it, so I figured it would be worthwhile to replace the lot. And I'm sure the car won't mind.
So far we have rebuilt the carb, swapped the fuel pump, oil and oil filter and given it a good look over. And since then I've picked through some of its paperwork, in which I've discovered that this was last serviced in 2010, which is when my father got this 351 put into it. Since then it has only done just shy of 2,000 kilometers and has been sat unregistered since 2015, which is just blatantly criminal. We all know it, this car needs to be out and about, driven and seen. It needs to be back out there on the road, bringing smiles back to the old rememberers and the young wanderers. And that is what we are trying to achieve here. Bringing her back to life so myself, my family, my friends, everyone can once again enjoy this cultural icon. Alright, so both front brakes have been disassembled, the spindles have been cleaned. Now we're just waiting on wheel bearings, which I've got right here. We'll grease them up. I've already pressed in the, I don't know what you call them, the runners or the sleeves, it's just where the wheel bearings seat onto and run around in the brake itself, or the hub in this instance, because it's multi-purpose. So now let's grease them up and then we can whack them back on. Should be all pretty straightforward. And we're an expert at doing wheel bearings now.
after learning on the VK Commodore.
As is common on these older cars, this XB Falcon's brake rotors are a part of the hub, meaning whenever you replaced or machined your brake discs, you need to replace or at least service your wheel bearings too, which all came about as manufacturers like Ford and Holden focused more on robustness than serviceability, keeping part quantities down and keeping it simple. However, this did have its drawbacks. Brakes are obviously a wear item, and this process of replacing the brake discs and the wheel bearings is time consuming, which all led to expensive service costs, longer wait times, and less vehicles through the dealership, which is ultimately where after sales makes its money. With this and improving technology in bearings such as completely sealed units, manufacturers went away from this setup to what we see today. That being said, it is still an incredibly robust setup, and you can still find this being done on some modern trucks today. So all the wheel bearings are now done on the front here, the brake rotors are on, and I've given them a bit of a clean so they don't, well, actually rather so they do work, so they're not gonna have grease on them and not gonna stop. This here is the passenger side brake caliper that has been seized. So what we'll do is we'll pull it apart, we'll see what's inside, see if it's hopefully salvageable. I presume it is. I imagine just a bit of rust build up in the cylinder itself. If there's nothing in here, then it probably means it's something to do with the brake line. But that being said, I've released all the pressure out of the brake line and it still didn't work. So unless it's like really collapsed and it's really went wrong, I don't know. Anyway, we'll start pulling this apart and see what we can and cannot find and rebuild it, make sure it's pretty again and whack it back on the car. And then we'll be done with brakes. How good's that? I've learned something new. Well, two things. If you put compressed air into behind where the piston is to try and move the piston out, be wary, it builds up pressure and it turns into an absolute missile and will shoot across the room. So that was entertaining. The second thing is, I didn't realise there's different calipers depending on, I don't know if it's just like a replacement thing they did at manufacturers, if it was a dealership thing, if they did it at dealers or if it was a manufacturer or if it's this is just an aftermarket modification. I'm not sure, but the brakes I've got are for a KH series, I think it's Kelly Haynes or something like that, brake caliper. This isn't. This is a PBR and the other side's exactly the same too. That's a bit of a pain in the ass because that now means I probably need even different brake pads, I would presume. I might have to check that, but I need to now find out where I can get the right bits that I need because what I've got is incorrect. Isn't it fun working on cars that are modified because you've got mixed and matched bits on them and you don't know what bit goes where and where it's from. So we have to figure all of that out. But that's half the fun, isn't it? Alright, let's find some bits. Whilst we're waiting for brake parts, I think we shall do this some. And unfortunately, back in the 70s, even older, this is 60s, I think this is quite an old transmission. They hadn't invented these things called drain plugs. So we have to now drop all the oil out very carefully without spilling it everywhere. So I'm thinking we crack all the nuts, or the bolts rather, and then lower one side down, because I don't know how much is in it. I don't know if it's above the sump line. And then keep one side done up. And wow, that exhaust is very close. That may prove to be problematic. We shall see. do? There's millipedes in here.
How's your day been?
I've already fitted the new trans mount. It was a bit of a faff because this exhaust is too big and it doesn't line up properly and it interferes with the cross member. It's actually rubbing on it. So I'm not too sure how long it's going to last, but time will tell, I suppose.
We haven't had this much rain in a long time. Went outside to check on the VK Commodore's fuel tank. Got soaked. Anyway, let's do brakes.
Rebuilding the brake calipers on these things is pretty straightforward. Being a single piston caliper, there isn't much complexity to it. The biggest issue I had was removing the pins that hold the two pieces of the brake caliper together, and I didn't surprisingly find any rust, though both calipers had a lot of gunk build up in them. This was especially so in our C's passenger side caliper, which appears to be our problem. It looks as if our old brake fluid has eaten away at the flexible brake lines and deposited a healthy amount of goo all around our brake cylinder and cylinder wall. Fortunately, however, this was easy enough to clean with copious amounts of degreaser and brake cleaner. Plus, our rebuild kit comes with new cylinders.
Oh, it's moving. We got it.
Though, that being said, I will still be keeping the old ones, along with the bleed nipples, rubbers, and all the old components. These cards aren't exactly new, and although you can still get most service items for them relatively easily, there will be undoubtedly a time when you can no longer. And having an old part you can freshen up or just have for reference will become invaluable.
Right, I forgot my bolts. Both calipers are now rebuilt. The passenger side one was significantly harder, but there was no signs of rust or anything. So I do wonder if something else is afoot there, like if it has been warped. I'm not too sure, but it's fixed now. So we'll test it and see how it goes. These brakes have been quite a saga. I've ordered the wrong brake line. Fortunately, I was able to find one locally. The big issue we've got is that I didn't have that bracket. The old ones are like crimped onto that bracket, so you can't remove it. I've gotten replacement ones. There are ways you can get these without the bracket being crimped on. This one's just got a circlip on it. But we're going obviously for originality here, so we got to keep the purity. Anyway, let's whack this on. brakes are all now done, they're all sorted, they're all looking happy and healthy. We do still need to bleed them, but we'll worry about that in a minute. First, I want to address this, which is the Borg-Warner diff. Now, it is leaking from the front housing as well, where the actual diff sits in. We're not going to address that at all at the moment. We're going to leave that for now. The main reason we're addressing this rear leak is because, one, it's worse, and two, I really just want to replace the fluid in this diff. As mentioned, it's a Borg-Warner diff. We've got a 351 hooked up to it. I don't think we're going to blow the diff. It shouldn't really be an issue. We're not going to floor it and act like a hoon, an idiot. But still, I think we should take care of the diff. We want it to survive at least for a while, because I don't have a 9-inch lying around. So we're going to keep using this diff, and we're going to take good care of it. So clean all of it up. Take this housing off. I may need to undo this brake line too, which I've just seen. I didn't realise that was there. Bit cruddy, but that's all right. We can deal with that. Soak it all into the degreaser, pull it off, drain the fluid out, put fresh fluid in there, and new gasket, and we'll be happy. So it should be all pretty straightforward. The only big issue we're going to have is this brake line. That should be easy enough to undo as well. Right, what do they look like? They look like... I might try and undo that first. Do we think there's going to be any fluid in there? Hopefully there is. Oh, it's not very tight at all. Oh. Oh, that's a little concerning. Why'd that have to happen? We might not be replacing the diff fluid at the moment then. Because if I can't do that, bugger! So that diff is quite a annoying problem, that diff cover. Fortunately, however, my dad had some foresight. See, he knew when he was into cars that stuff like this was going to happen. Stuff was going to break, and it was going to be either expensive or impossible to get new parts. So we bought a whole bunch of other absolute boxes to use as parts cars. I think we'll be able to find a Borg-Warner diff in here somehow. We'll be able to steal the housing off of it, and then we'll probably put that old one back on here so it stays sealed. Now we just got to find one. That looks like one there too. That looks like a 9-inch too. It looks like it's been chopped. All right, let's go steal that diff cover. All right, let's see. Does it come off? I'm gonna have to hold the diff. Oh, this is gonna be awkward filming. My bad. Bloody hell. Oh. All right, give me a minute. Oh. Yeah, that's what we want to see. Alright, let's pull it apart. Thanks, she's pretty clean. Covered in oil, but it's not bad. Oh, it smells like water and oil, doesn't it? Alright, let's
make our way back up.
Right. Let's go have some lunch.
The differential is now full of fluid. It is all looking pretty happy and healthy in there. The new cover is on and sealed and it's not leaking anymore, at least from the backside, which is fantastic. The transmission now is also full of fluid. We'll double check it after our first drive, once it gets up to temperatures, to see how much fluid is in there. Everything is looking really good and we're just about ready to take her on the road, except I'm having some dramas bleeding the brakes. For whatever reason, I can get fluid all throughout it, but I cannot seem to get any pressure into them. The brake just doesn't, it feels like it's doing something, but it's not very confidence inspiring, and I'd rather not crash this. So let's try and make sure the brakes are proper. So I'm gonna get a mate around. We're gonna go and have a shot at trying to bleed these brakes properly, using two hands, not this vacuum pump that seems to be having some issues, and my compressor now is just carked it, so I'm not gonna have much luck using that anymore anyway. But the next time you see this, it'll be on the road. Unless I break something in the brake fluids, we'll see.
What did I do with my bolt? All right, so we've got both wheels up. We've got both I stuffed up, I installed this on backwards, and even told myself, I was like, don't do that, don't install it on backwards, make sure you check that. I didn't check it, I've effectively got two now driver's side calipers. Found it, we're all good. I got no idea how this brake line works.